Hey, this is Andrew. I'm about to play my second playoff game against Wiss. It's about 12:43 a.m. We just finished a 50-minute game. I won the first game. Oops. I guess I'll put a disclaimer that you shouldn't watch this one until you've watched the first one in the thread. Sorry, that didn't take me long to screw up with spoilers. Okay, so I'm going to play the Sicilian. He plays the Mora Gambit. I do too, so I don't know if he'll play it against me or not. Probably he won't. We might get an open Sicilian. Alright, I'll probably play Sveshnikov type stuff. Alright, we'll see what happens. I'm tempted to play the Kalashnikov instead of going into the main line. I don't know. I guess he probably knows what I'm going to play, but he probably hasn't done too much prep, so let's just play it. Main line is Sveshnikov is knight c3, e5, and we're chasing this knight away. Usually it comes to b5 to threaten to jump into d6. Any other move in black has at least equalized and might even be better. So I have to play d6 now. If I don't play d6, knight d6, bishop d6, queen d6, queen e7, and that's usually pretty good for him. So now there are two lines. He can play either knight d5 or knight a3. And knight d5 is a sideline, and after knight d5, e d5, knight b8, it's about equal. The other main line before he moved with the sideline is bishop g5, and then we usually play a6, knight a3, and b5, and the idea is we just drop that knight offside. So he played a4, huge sideline, not very much theory. The point is that he stops us from playing b5. So this knight is always going to have a route back into the game via c4. We still kick it with a6, and then now we can play a number of moves, including h6, which I like, just kind of make him play his own game, or bishop e6 or bishop e7. So I'm just going to play h6 because just kind of get an odd position that nobody really knows. The point is that he can't play bishop g5. He would like to play bishop g5 to trade off this knight, which is the only defender of d5 at the moment. He doesn't really want to drop a knight into d5 yet. Obviously he can't. Well, he can drop a knight into d5, but then his queen ends up on d5, and it's not so good for him. So he'll probably play bishop d3 or bishop c4. I think bishop c4 is the main line here, and the point of that is to just kind of take control over d5 more. Everything is revolving around this this d5 square this entire game. So a lot of moves just don't really match his plan. A lot of times this knight will come through c4 to e3, so he might want to do that before bishop c4, but he plays the main line. So now I want to castle, because if I don't castle, he'll eventually have tricks in the center, and I also need to castle before I can even think about playing for d5. So now we should both castle, and then he'll play a move like bishop e3 or something. I don't believe he can try and castle queenside. Usually once they play a4, they don't want to castle queenside anymore. Okay, so castle, and now he has to finish development with a move like bishop e3. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of that move because of queen b6. Note that I can play knight d4 now with a little bit more impunity. I like queen b6 a lot here, but I might have something even better. Yeah, I think I'm just going to play queen b6. He pretty much has to play king h1. After king h1, I'm going to just play bishop e6 to try and add some control to this d5 square. If he takes, I'll take back. If knight d5, I'll take with the bishop. Might also have queen c5. I guess I don't have queen c5 because he has bishop e3 trapping my queen, which is sad. That would be a sad way to force playoffs. Okay, so I'm not going to play queen c5. I think I just have to take. Alright, I'll just take. Alright, now I think I'm going to play queen c5. And the point of queen c5 is to prevent him from taking back with the queen. So if he does nothing, knight d5, queen d5, queen d5, e d5, now I just have a great game. I can play a move like knight d4 or knight b4 to try and take his pawn off, which would force c4. Yeah, that would be great. He never wants to take on c6 because then I take with the pawn and I'm getting in d5 pretty quickly. This queen c5 move is kind of why I played queen b6. The point is just that the queen is on a really good square. He might even go back with the bishop, but then I guess rook d8 and I'm just threatening d5. What else? He can play rook e1 to try and get in bishop e3. So rook e1, knight d5, e d5, knight d4, bishop e3, I guess. Throw it after c3. So we kind of have an equal game now. I'm pretty happy with equal. Queen e1 is I guess doesn't work here because he's hanging a pawn, but queen e1 to g3 is not a bad plan for him. I don't have much to say. Sorry for leaving so much dead air. Alright, I guess the point of that is that if I take and he takes back with the pawn, my knight doesn't have so many good squares. Actually, take knight b8 to d7 is interesting. Borrowing an idea from the Roy Lopez. Yeah, let's try that. Once he has a pawn on d5, that's usually a really good thing for me. Okay, so I guess the queens are coming off. I'm a little bit tempted to come back to d8 instead of b8. I still think b8 is more accurate, b8 to d7 to c5. Or to f6 to attack this. If he ever plays f4, I'm just going to play knight d7 to defend it. Knight a4, b4 is really problematic. Actually less than I thought because of this. So knight a5 isn't a bad option either. Yeah, probably I'll play knight a5 to b3 to c5. The only downside is that I guess he could play bishop to e3, knight b3, rook d1, rook c8, knight c4 or something. Yeah, you know, I like this knight on d7 a lot. I think I'm just going to go for that plan. On d7, it's going to control these squares, it's going to defend d5, can come to f6 to attack, and it's out of the way. I never want to rook on the d file because of these d pawns. Sorry, somebody's observing the game. I was curious who it was. Alright, I'm going to continue with the plan. Rook c8 is going to come, f5 is going to come. Maybe I just play f5 next move. If he plays c4, I think I have to play rook c8, and then if rook c1, then I'll play knight c5. Okay, that move, I don't think that was the most accurate move I've ever seen, because this f pawn is one of his breaks, so the rook was useful there, and this pawn is never going anywhere, so the rook isn't so useful. And he doesn't really have to defend that pawn yet. So I have to decide between f5 and rook c8. Why does everybody want to be my podcast partner? Don't they know that I suck? I'm going to play rook c8 because it stops knight c4. If he had knight c4, he might have knight c4, d2, e4. Of course, I always play f5 when the knight comes to d2. And basically, I'm never going to touch these queenside pawns. He has a hard time breaking through if I don't move him. If I play b5, all of a sudden he can break through with rook c1, b3, c4. So I guess his plan is going to have to be b4 followed by c4, c5. And in that case, I might make an exception and play b6. So I should have at least equality here, and probably even better. I'm not really sure what my plan should be, though. Sadly, it's kind of hard for me to make tons of progress. I mean, for example, I can't really play for e4 because, well, I could, but it's just a really long plan. I'd have to play knight f6, rook e8, bishop f8, f5, f5, then knight f6, then rook e8, then bishop f8, and then finally e4. And as soon as I play e4, that pawn's just weak. My bishop would be a little bit sad there. Probably the right way is to trade off my dark square bishop. I'm not sure whether to do that on b6 or on g5. Sometimes I can keep the dark square bishop in these Sicilian type positions, but I'm not sure I can do that here. I am trying to decide on a plan. I don't really want to trade off my dark square bishop yet, because I guess it's kind of hard to describe why, but I kind of like it because it works so well with these pawns, and if it ever comes to this diagonal, it does a great job of hemming in his king. Similarly, if we come to this diagonal, we do a nice job of controlling the c1 square, and in all of these Sicilians, this c file is always really important. Bishop g5 is interesting if he takes. I guess these doubled pawns are not so bad, because I'm going to play f5, maybe king f7 to g6. I have some play on the h file. I can always drop my knight into c5 when I feel like it. I think I'm going to trade off the bishop because his knight is so bad. The piece that he'll be left with, his knight, is much worse than mine at the moment. He can try and make it better, but that's going to take a bunch of moves. I was trying to. He has a hard time getting to this e4 square where it is useful, and I can always chase it with f5. b3 and knight c4 is probably his best plan. Alright, let's just trade these guys off. My bishop's always going to be bad because of these pawns. His is always going to be good because of this pawn. And then I'll try and deal with his knight c4 plan. So basically I'm trying to play against his plan of c5 instead of playing for a plan of my own. My initial thought of trying to trade off his bishop on b6 was that then I control the c4 square with my knight, but again, that's a little bit optimistic. Okay, if he takes, I'm taking back. Okay, so he takes. Let's see. I think his plan should be b3, knight c4, that type of stuff. So b3, knight c5, forcing him to defend his b pawn, because if he ever plays b4, first of all, I can take. Second of all, he's never going to get his knight to c4. So b3, knight c5, if b4, knight a4, and then I guess knight c3 is just devastating. So you should play b3, knight c5, rook b1, and then I don't know, maybe f5, maybe g4. I like g4, that's kind of interesting. I have knight e4 at the point that he doesn't have rook f1 because of knight to d2 forking him, and yeah, that's kind of cute, so I'd play g4 there. The other way is e4, but I like this e-pawn. So I think you should play b3 and rook b1, and then knight c4. But we will see. Alright, I have a nice time at 2.5 minutes, closing in on 3. Time isn't a factor yet. We're probably going to get some playable endgame, and we'll see. Okay, a5, that's an interesting way to play. So he wants to solve his a-pawn problem. So if knight c5 now, his a-pawn will never hang. Also, I can't play b6 now. b6 was useful to stop c5 in some lines. Now I can't do that. Probably, so knight c5, b4, knight d7, c4, c5 is coming mighty quickly. So maybe I play knight f6 instead. Knight f6, c4, g4 there, I guess. If c5, maybe I just defend. I'm not sure. I'm going to move the knight because that's my worst piece. I'm just trying to decide whether I should go for some kingside play with knight f6 or queenside with knight c5. I'm going to play f5, I think. That way I can put the knight in behind the pawn, and now I'm going to keep his knight out of these squares forever. If he ever plays g4, probably g6, followed by knight f6. Also, I really want to play for e4, because this e5 square is great for my knight. But the only real way to do that is to play g4 at some point and try and take off his pawn. Okay, so he plays b4 anyways, so I guess it's a good thing I didn't go to knight c5 because I would have lost the tempo. Sorry, I'm looking at e4. The point at e4 is that I basically get a passed pawn by force. I didn't see it before, but this is kind of a little bit of a crazy line. e4, fe4, fe4, so now I have the f1 square and back rank tricks. If rook e1, knight e5, and now if rook e4, knight d3 wins. Full stop. He can't play rook c2 to stop knight f2. So knight f2 is the big threat, or one of the threats, forking, also attacking his rook. And rook c2, rook f1 is mate, rook f1, rook takes f1 is mate. So he's going to have to, after e4, fe, rook e1, knight e5, allow this pawn to live. He can't take. He would have to play a move like, I don't know, knight c2 or something, and then I'm going to play knight d3, or that's a threat forking again. And again, after knight d3, I'm threatening both rook f1 and sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. I was looking at a line. Sorry, I'm threatening rook f1 mate if he takes. And I'm also threatening knight f2 check forking. Let's give it a shot. It's a little bit of positional suicide if it doesn't work out, because then I just have these double G pawns against his healthy G and H pawns. But I'm banking on the fact that this knight position and the passed e pawn will more than make up for it. So he probably should not take, because if he takes, that opens the f file for me. However, if he doesn't take, I have ideas of e3 and f4. So what should he play instead? Maybe a move like knight c2. No, never mind, that hangs c3. I'm not sure. Maybe rook e1, then knight e5 anyways. Okay, c4, that's probably a reasonable move. I guess the point is that if I play knight e5, he's going to play c5. Kind of want to play knight e5 anyways. Yeah, because I have knight e3. And after the rook moves, I'm just going to take everything off and be up a pawn, right? Alright, I'm going to try it. I'm pretty much bringing my knight into d3 by force. Again, knight c2, rook c4. If b5, we just ignore it. Because b5, b takes a6, b takes a6, leaves him with the backward pawn. And rook e1, knight d3 wins an exchange. Okay, I think that is a mistake because of knight d3. Actually, knight d3, I'm threatening knight f2, so he might have to play king g1, no, so he might have to play rook c2. But then knight b4, and after his rook moves, I go back to d3. And if it takes, I'm going to be taking his rook off. Alright, let's try it. I'm not sure what he's going to play. I guess I'll wait and see, as opposed to trying to calculate it all. Yeah, rook c2, knight b4 looks like a big problem. I'm trying to look to see how he can give me an exchange. Rook d3 looks suicidal, because he can never take on d6. Okay, my point was it looks suicidal because I'm going to win this c5 pawn. Take d2, then I take off the c pawn, gang up on the d pawn. Okay, guess that's one way to stop d2, but I think rook e8 looks really good. Rook f to e8, he still can't take, and now he can't even push because I have back rank tricks. So let's see. If knight d2, rook e2. If h3, rook e2 anyways. Okay, he just said he couldn't do this. Okay, so he resigns. Good game. He has to play a move like rook to d1, and then my rooks are coming to the 7th. I think that's pretty much all she wrote. Rook c2, if ever knight d2, I just take it. Says knight doesn't really have any squares. If knight a3, probably can play a move like rook d2 or yeah. Anyways, okay. I don't feel like doing too much analysis. I feel like I kind of got most of the lines across. Just to say that bishop g5 is the main line instead a4. And I think black got an easy game after the queens came off. When I go over it later, knight a5 is probably more accurate. But I just like this idea of controlling this c5 and f6 square. And as it turned out, this came in handy because I was able to play knight e5. Okay, anyways, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them, and I am looking forward to making a few more videos for the finals. Alright, thanks for watching, and talk to you guys later.